Canada did something no one in Washington expected. It went quiet. In a world where political noise is often mistaken for strength, this silence was deafening. It was a move that caught even seasoned diplomats off guard, leaving analysts scrambling to interpret what would come next. In the middle of a heated trade dispute, Ottawa lowered its voice, not as a retreat, but as a calculated strategic pause. Instead of matching rhetoric with rhetoric, Canadian officials chose restraint, signaling a different kind of power, one rooted in patience and long-term vision. The decision to suspend planned retaliatory tariffs stunned an American administration used to predictable pushback. Suddenly, the usual playbook didn't apply, and the White House was left searching for a response. President Trump's team had braced for a fight, but instead Canada made a subtle chess move, leaving Washington scrambling. The silence from Ottawa was not weakness, but a deliberate tactic that forced the U.S. to reconsider its next steps. For months, the trade narrative was all escalation, threats and counter-threats, anger feeding anger. The world watched as tensions mounted, expecting another round of retaliation. Canadian leaders, however, stepped off the dance floor, putting countermeasures on hold just as new American tariffs loomed. It was a moment of unexpected calm in a storm of uncertainty. This wasn't surrender, it was a signal. Canada would not be baited into a reckless trade war. Instead, it was a message of resolve, showing that true strength sometimes means refusing to play by someone else's rules. The move marked a new, unpredictable chapter in the strained relationship between two old friends. It was a reminder that alliances can be tested, and that even the closest partners can surprise each other. It came amid political change in Canada, with a new generation vying for leadership. The country was at a crossroads, and the world was watching to see which path it would choose. Mark Carney, the frontrunner, brings global experience, a reputation for steady hands in turbulent times, and a vision that extends beyond Canada's borders. While rivals like Chrystia Freeland push for a tougher stance, advocating for a more assertive approach to U.S. relations and trade policy. This internal debate is shaping Canada's future and its approach to the U.S. The choices made now will echo for years, influencing not just trade but the very nature of Canadian diplomacy. Ottawa's silence forced Washington to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their pressure strategy wasn't working. The expected reaction never came, and the U.S. was left to question its assumptions. Canada's quiet defiance isolated the American position, making Trump's tactics look more like bullying than negotiation. The optics shifted, and so did the balance of power. For the first time in years, Canada seized control of the narrative. The story was no longer about reaction, but about strategy and restraint. The world is watching, and the quiet from the north has become a deafening roar. Allies and rivals alike are taking note, wondering if this is the start of a new era in global diplomacy. Everyone is waiting to see what comes next. The stakes are high, and the outcome is anything but certain. The rules of the game have changed, and the world is watching as Canada makes its next move. The standoff began on April 2, 2025, a day that would mark the start of a tense and unpredictable chapter in global trade relations. On that day, the Trump administration unveiled sweeping new tariffs, targeting not just traditional rivals but also close allies like Canada, sending shockwaves through diplomatic circles and global markets alike. The White House issued a stark ultimatum, a 90-day window to negotiate or face tariffs by August 1st. This was more than a policy, it was a high-stakes gamble, putting immense pressure on America's trading partners. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it a first-mover advantage, hoping to force quick concessions. But to America's allies, it felt more like a threat than an invitation to negotiate. As the deadline approached, negotiations with Canada, the UK, Japan, and the EU stalled. Talks grew tense, and trust began to erode as each side dug in. America's strategy, using brute force to rewrite trade relationships, was backfiring. Markets grew volatile, and business leaders warned of unintended consequences. Instead of caving, these nations formed a united front of resistance, coordinating their responses and signaling they would not be bullied into submission. Then, with the deadline looming, Canada paused its own planned retaliatory tariffs. The move surprised many observers and shifted the tone of the standoff. The list of American goods targeted was ready, but Ottawa held its fire, a strategic de-escalation that left the world guessing about Canada's next move. This move could be seen as weakness, but it was a powerful statement. Canada wouldn't light the fuse on a trade war, choosing restraint over retaliation. The contrast was stark. America threatened, Canada de-escalated. The world took notice of the different approaches on display. The timeline was clear: American ultimatum, stalled talks, Canadian pivot. Each step added new uncertainty to the global economic landscape. The ball was now in Washington's court, with the world waiting to see what the next move would be. Would the White House recognize the gesture and negotiate, or double down on threats, risking further escalation and economic fallout? The world watched anxiously as the August 1st deadline approached, knowing that the outcome could reshape the future of international trade. The White House was blindsided. Trump officials expected a tit-for-tat exchange, tariffs for tariffs, justifying their aggressive stance. Instead, Canada's pause dismantled that playbook. The expected Canadian anger never materialized, leaving the U.S. looking like the sole aggressor. Canada's move was political jujitsu, using the opponent's momentum against them. Inside the administration, confusion and frustration grew. U.S. negotiators had counted on Canadian retaliation to force concessions. But Ottawa signaled it would absorb the initial blow, showing resolve and patience. This miscalculation undermined America's strategy, sending a message to other allies: you can hold firm. Canada's pause became a template for resistance, altering global trade dynamics. The White House's plan to isolate partners backfired. The world saw there was another way. Ottawa's trade maneuver comes amid a seismic shift in Canadian politics. The Liberal Party's leadership race is a battle for Canada's future approach to the U.S. Mark Carney, a global financial heavyweight, leads with a promise of steady, experienced leadership. His strategy, strategic, patient, globally minded, mirrors the tariff pause. Chrystia Freeland, his main rival, pushes for a hardline response: massive retaliatory tariffs targeting key U.S. states. This clash, Carney's measured internationalism versus Freeland's combative nationalism, defines the political landscape. Other candidates try to refocus on domestic issues, but the U.S. question dominates. Even the opposition Conservatives are losing ground as the crisis takes center stage. The leadership outcome could trigger a snap election, making this a defining moment for Canada. Trade tensions are hitting ordinary Canadians and Americans where it hurts, at home. Prices are rising, jobs are at risk, and economic anxiety is spreading. For Canadians, the cost of living climbs as goods from the U.S. become more expensive. Businesses face tough choices: absorb costs or pass them to consumers. Americans feel the pain too. Tariffs hit their wallets, and industries like dairy and autos face layoffs. Political fallout is growing, with divisions in both countries over how to respond. The trade dispute is now a kitchen table issue, not just a political story. Citizens on both sides are confronting the real-world consequences of a fractured relationship. Canada's pause is part of a broader coordinated response from America's traditional allies. The EU, Japan, and the UK are also holding back on countermeasures, signaling unity. The Trump administration's divide-and-conquer strategy is faltering as allies resist pressure. Leaders like Japan's Ishiba and the UK's Starmer insist on stable, rules-based trade. These nations aren't anti-American, they're defending decades of cooperation. Instead, they're strengthening ties with each other. Building a network less dependent on the U.S. Canada's move is a key piece in this global puzzle, showing middle powers can push back. The coordinated pause is a sophisticated diplomatic maneuver, calling for a return to reason. Trade tensions have rattled global markets, creating a fog of uncertainty. Trillions in market swings are linked to instability from Trump's tariff policies. Business leaders warn that uncertainty is the biggest threat to the economy. Companies are scrambling to rebuild supply chains, driving up costs for everyone. Political pressure on the U.S. Federal Reserve adds to the jitters, making investors wary. Foreign leaders now prioritize long-term stability over quick deals with the U.S. They're building more resilient trade relationships elsewhere. The old rules are gone, and the future of the global economy feels more uncertain than ever. The Canada-US standoff is more than a trade dispute. It's a pivotal moment that could reshape the very foundation of their relationship for years to come. What's unfolding now is about more than tariffs or policy. It's about trust, alliances, and the future direction of two nations that have long relied on each other. The next few months are critical. Decisions made in Ottawa and Washington will determine whether this conflict escalates into a lasting rift or finds a path toward resolution. Political leaders on both sides are under intense pressure to act decisively, knowing the stakes are higher than ever. In Canada, a snap election looms, with the trade crisis dominating headlines and shaping the national conversation. Voters are watching closely, aware that the outcome could redefine Canada's role on the world stage. A new prime minister could use the standoff to rally voters, promising a tougher stance or a fresh approach to secure a mandate. The crisis has become a central issue, energizing campaigns and sparking debate across the country. In the U.S., a trade war with Canada threatens not only economic stability, but also the political fortunes of President Trump. American businesses and workers are feeling the impact, and the dispute could quickly become a major liability as elections approach. Divisions within the Republican Party are growing deeper, with some lawmakers openly questioning the administration's strategy. Failed trade policy could become a powerful attack line for opponents, fueling further discord in Washington. Even if a deal is reached, the trust that once defined the Canada-U.S. partnership has been shaken. Diplomatic ties are strained, and both sides are reassessing what the future holds. Canada and other allies are now actively seeking to diversify trade, forging new partnerships and reducing their dependence on the U.S. market. The search for alternative alliances is accelerating. The era of taking the friendship for granted is over. Both countries are entering uncharted territory, where old assumptions no longer apply. Ottawa's quiet pause signals a new, more independent Canadian course on the world stage, one shaped by uncertainty, resilience, and a determination to chart its own path forward.